Because as you probably noticed, Europe's a very different place than it was 20 years ago. A lot different, much different. It's a much different, and they better be careful with immigration and energy. If they're not careful with those two things, you're not going to have a Europe anymore.
Yeah, Aaron, we actually have some significant news that was just released by the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. This is a joint statement between the chairwoman of that committee, Kirsten Gillibrand, and the Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer. Here's what they wrote, quote, "The allegations reported today are incredibly disturbing. Violence, abuse, and sexual assault are absolutely unacceptable. Graham Plattner needs to immediately withdraw as the Democratic nominee for Senate."
And the difference between this accuser and the previous one is simply this. She's a liberal. It's okay, I guess, for Democrats that their candidates assault conservatives. But he broke into someone's house and apparently, according to her, raped her. And because her politics are correct, they can now believe it. All of this whole thing is disgusting. But to say that they hadn't vetted him or that they didn't know about all this is totally false. They knew it and they signed up for it. And I don't know why.
Well, just one day is all we needed to see so many moves being made in regards to Seth Rich, election fraud, the CDL licenses being revoked in mass, President Trump dropping big truth bombs in Turkey, and more comms to help us understand. We have a front row to history in the making. You don't want to miss this. 513,000 followers on Rumble. Thank you. That's our free speech site where most of us understand. We go there and hit that like button, follow, and it gets us to number 2 on the leaderboard next to Dan Bongino. We certainly appreciate that. And also, just in case you didn't know,
our new And We Know bracelets connect you with scripture with just the tap of your phone. Simply tap your phone to the bracelet, click the pop-up, and there's a new verse every time. If you're feeling anxious, need to pray, or just want to see what God has for you in the moment, you can tap for a verse and pray over that situation. Now available online.
Online at amweknow.com, and you guys will be showing a bunch of pictures of Patriots wearing their gear later on in this broadcast. If you guys didn't know, Turkey, if you're looking at your screen, look how they welcomed President Trump. They went full effect, grand fashion, mounted escorts for the 2026 NATO summit, right? And there he is, and man, it is wonderful to behold how these countries treat him and so much more. And so a couple of things that he said before going in.
With respect to what? Well, that's what hurt my relationship with NATO, because Greenland doesn't help Denmark. Denmark doesn't spend money to really help Greenland, but it's an important part for the United States. And it's surrounded by China ships and Russian ships. And that's not going to happen. The ships it's not going to happen. It was Greenland that, and it continues to be, that should be controlled by the United States, not by Denmark. And when they wouldn't go along with it, and with all the money we spend to help them with Russia, and we don't have to spend any money, we could remove all of our soldiers out of Europe. Because as you probably noticed, Europe's a very different place than it was 20 years ago. A lot different, much different. It's a much different, and they better be careful with immigration and energy. If they're not careful with those two things, you're not going to have a Europe anymore. Okay, thank you very much.
You know, we've heard this before, and he brought this up, and I'm just going to remind you. He said the United States spends more money on NATO than any other country by far to protect them without getting any benefit from so doing. U.S. $999 billion. United Kingdom actually gets that. I'm sorry. We give $999 billion. United Kingdom, $90.5 billion to France, $66.5 billion Italy, $48.8 billion to Poland, and $44.3 billion. I guess we could go to Poland. Anyway, others, including Germany, much lower. But President Trump had this to say.
We win. They're going to come and help us. Okay. But you know what? Italy was very bad. Italy was very bad. And other countries, Germany was very bad. So we spend all of this money, probably 600, I think we spend 600 million a year, right? I would say that. I think the real number, think of that. The numbers that we spend are so crazy, or NATO, and they weren't there for us. So I say to Pete, and I say to everybody else, if we're spending all of this money, just hundreds of millions of dollars to protect them from Russia, mostly. Okay, so we're spending hundreds of millions of dollars.
And the exact amount for U.S. is $999 billion, folks. That's your hardworking money. Heading over to those other countries that keep making huge mistakes, not supporting us at all in many ways. And President Trump has been continuing this effort to get that word out.
A year. You know, the case could be made that we spent all of the money over the years before me. I cut it back. But listen, we spent all of this money, and then when we want to maybe have help on small stuff, this is small time. This is not the big one. This is small potatoes. They say no, would rather not help. Stupid thing to say, because we can say that to them if we want, and we might.
Yeah. And he said we might. And listen to this. This popped up here.
Mark Rutte in the Washington Post yesterday. He writes, quote, NATO 3.0 is rising and buying American. The alliance has learned that has leaned too heavily on U.S. muscle is building its own and buying American too, obviously referring to the sale of military hardware. This, combined with President Trump's comments today, seem to indicate a cheerier tone for the NATO alliance as they're meeting in Turkey. Do you agree with that?
Well, look, President Trump's been clear for many, many years that we need to see Europe step up when it comes to burden sharing, our NATO allies increasing their defense spending.
Now, a big announcement came up. President Trump was there in Turkey. He lifted sanctions on Turkey.
I can tell you, we're going to be taking the sanctions off. Okay? I don't want him to waste his time answering that question because we're working very closely with Marco Rubio, a very famous man, great Secretary of State, and with Scott Bessent, and with Pete and everybody else. We're going to be taking the sanctions off. It's time to do that. Okay? We don't want to sanction friends. It's very simple. There's plenty of people we can sanction, and we are sanctioned. We don't want to sanction friends. And because of the president, you know, we have a very good relationship with the new leader of Syria, and he's done an amazing job. In a year and a half, he's pulled the whole country together. And I have a very great relationship with him. And somebody said, well, he's pretty rough to put him there. I approved him along with the president. We were the two that really wanted him. And he's done a great job. He's done a great job. He's pulled it together. Not an easy job.
You know what's amazing? I was right in the face of Bibi Netanyahu. Oh, yeah. He urged, according to India today, President Trump not to approve the sale of F-35 stealth fighter jets to Turkey, warning that the move would destroy the power balance in the Middle East. His remarks came after Trump announced plans to lift sanctions on Ankara and signaled openness to restoring Turkey's access to the advanced fighter aircraft. While Trump described Turkey as a valued ally, Netanyahu argued that arming Ankara with F-35s could fuel regional instability. And, of course, we have Observing Consciousness giving us a great graphic to look at on your screen. Trump crushes the Turkey boogeyman play. Turkey restored, the fear ladder collapses faster. Remember the old play, Greece equals cover ally, Cyprus equals legal hook, NATO equals pressure venue, F-35s equals the trigger, and Israel air superiority equals protected asset. Turkey was being auditioned as the next boogeyman, the next bad guy. Boom, Trump just put Netanyahu's Turkey boogeyman play on the table and crushed it in public, says Observing Consciousness, and that's at HOLON above. I subscribe to him. I hope you guys would go check him out too. Netanyahu tried to move Turkey into the next threat file at the exact moment Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas are being boxed in sequence. Then Trump stepped in on camera and said the sanctions are coming off because it's time and because America does not sanction friends. That line changes the whole pressure field. Turkey was being auditioned as the replacement monster. Trump just moved Turkey back into the friend column. The whole architecture was visible. Greece was the cover ally, Cyprus as the legal hook. I know I said this, but I'll repeat it. NATO as the pressure venue, F-35s as the trigger, and Israeli air superiority as the protected asset underneath the entire move. Trump saw it and reversed the polarity in public. Now the Middle East fear ladder is collapsing faster. Iran is boxed in. Hezbollah is boxed in. Hamas is boxed in. Turkey is restored. That leaves Israel's political class standing in the open as the old emergency shield burns away. Once the boogeyman's gone, the outpost is exposed, the CCP and City of London loses cover. Accountability moves closer to the room. And I have more on this in a moment. You don't want to miss it. We're living in a world where plastic is no longer just around us, it's inside us.
And we start with a new study on the impact of microplastics, which found human brains contained as much plastic as a plastic spoon, which is up 50% from 2016.
What we're finding is in the brains of people who have dementia, there's actually higher amounts of microplastics.
And these microplastics don't stay just in your brain. When that ecosystem is disrupted, your health can suffer, triggering inflammation, high blood sugar, and oxidative stress, the leading driver of cancer. The good news is that while you can avoid microplastics entirely, you can support your gut and help your body fight back. That's where kimchi comes in. Certain probiotic strains found in kimchi have demonstrated the ability to not only remove toxins like BPA, new research is also exploring how these same beneficial bacteria may help bind and excrete microplastics before they can go and do further damage. Kimchi is one of the world's most powerful superfoods, but its strong taste and smell can make daily use a challenge. So Kimchi 1 gives you all the benefits of fermented kimchi in an easy-to-take capsule without the mess or hassle. Each capsule delivers over 900 probiotic strains like enzymes and antioxidants that help restore balance in your gut. People are seeing improvements in digestion, bloating, regularity, energy, and metabolism. Studies show that kimchi can even reduce the risk of obesity by 31.8%. Kimchi 1 is made with all natural, non-GMO ingredients and 100% made in the USA. I personally love knowing that I'm supporting my gut, immune system, and overall health with one simple daily capsule. If you're looking for an easy way to help your body fight back against today's toxic environment, Kimchi 1 is it. You can get 25% off your order by going to the link below, or for an even better deal, call my friends at Brightcore and they'll give you up to 50% off plus free shipping. Call 888-317-9941. The first 100 callers to order will also get a free bottle of vitamin D3. Again, you can only get the 50% off, free shipping, and free bottle of vitamin D3 when you call. Once again, that number is 888-317-9941. So let's continue with this from Observing Consciousness. Ankara is bigger than a summit. Trump is putting three systems under pressure at the same time. Ukraine is the industrial test. The alliance has lived inside speeches, pledges, and symbolic unity long enough. Now Trump is forcing the conversion into metal missiles, factories, patriots, logistics, Black Sea leverage, and a settlement lane everyone could feel. Israel is the exposure test. Netanyahu tried to manufacture the next fear frame by pushing Turkey into the enemy file as Iran, Hezbollah, and Hamas were being boxed in sequence when Trump walked in front of the cameras and cut the wire clean. America does not sanction friends. That one line moved Turkey out of the boogeyman file back into the alliance column. NATO is the burden test. Trump is squeezing the structure that spent decades leaning on American power while lecturing from behind the shield. Spend, build, produce, carry weight, prove value. That is the board. So Ukraine gets turned from aid theater into war production. Israel loses the next monster. NATO loses the free ride. Turkey is the lever cutting through all three. When Turkey is restored, Netanyahu's emergency ladder snaps. And when NATO is forced into output, Europe loses the excuse machine. When Ukraine becomes a production and settlement pressure point, the war managers lose control of the tempo. This is the architecture shift. The fear model is collapsing. The outpost is exposed. The alliance is being stress tested. And Trump is making every player show what they are really built for. let's see how this all unfolds. Very, very interesting. And let's have a couple other comments President Trump made that really made folks kind of go, what?
Some of them are new. We don't know them. But, I've been doing this for now sort of a long time. If you count the 4 years where we had a rigged election, it was very much into politics then too. But I spent the first 4 years. I spent 4 years in a little different state. And then we've had an amazing, probably the best year maybe ever had by an American president. When you look at the economy, we have the greatest economy we've ever had. We have $19 trillion, $19.2 trillion to be exact.
So interesting, right? I've been doing this for a long time, he says, if you count the 4 years where we had a rigged election. I spent the first 4 years in a little different state. And now we've had the best year maybe ever had by an American president. So a different state. We've been talking about that for a while, right? 45-47. Who was really running the show when Biden was there? The fake Biden. And of course, President Trump talked about the immigration problems that Europe is having. If they're not careful, they're going to have severe issues. We talked about that. And when he brought that up, it made me think about the issues that we're actually having too. Amy Mack brought this up again. I mean, she's a great reporter on all this. Like clockwork, here comes the Islamic lawfare. Listen to this guy from Muslim News, Muslim Network TV. A few things he says, and we'll talk about it.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Ahmed Ramadan. CARE sues DeSantis over terror designation. This and more on today's show. Stay tuned. The Council on American Islamic Relations, or CARE, is suing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. This is after he again designated the country's largest Muslim civil rights group as a terrorist organization. The litigation follows a new Florida law that allows the governor to label domestic organizations as terrorist groups.
So, CARE suing Governor Ron DeSantis. Designated the group, along with the Muslim Brotherhood, terrorists under Florida's new law. This was completely predictable, of course, as Amy Mack, Islamic TV, is panicking. After years of exposing CARE's documented ties to the Muslim Brotherhood and its influence inside Florida's schools and communities, the group is now running to the courts to block the state from cutting off its access to public resources, including school choice funding. CARE claims the new law violates the First and 14th Amendments and gives the governor too much power. They're asking for an emergency court order to stop the designation from taking effect. DeSantis has shown that CARE Hamas was founded by individuals linked to the Muslim Brotherhood and has long concealed those connections while presenting itself as a mainstream civil rights organization. The lawsuit comes right after an earlier federal judge blocked DeSantis's previous executive order on the same issue. Now they're trying again through the courts. This classic jihad lawfare, using the legal system to protect influence and funding that the state has now decided to cut off. Florida finally took a stand. The question is whether the courts will let it stand or once again hand CARE another win. Question: what is the federal government doing while red states are finally trying to fight back? Besides pandering for the Islamic vote or auctioning off pieces of our country to the highest Islamic bidder. We're in deep trouble too. That leads us to some more on these illegals that come into our country. The commercial driver's license crackdown happening.
The number of illegal commercial driver's license revoked as of May 1st was over 28,000, which seems significant. But out of how many? What do you know what the denominator is?
That's a work in progress, because again, getting information from some of the sanctuary states is a struggle, and Sean Duffy's suing, DOJ suing, so we're trying to get all this information we can. We got a lot of it. We got a lot of people we're looking for. We're actually, some states we're actually working way stations with the troopers trying to get these people as they're coming through. So it's a work in progress. President Trump's serious about this. ICE is out there with the local law enforcement and state law enforcement, wherever they will allow us to work with them, to ID these people and take them off the street.
It's about time. And all of this is happening in the midst of Many of us concerned about the midterm elections right around the corner. Before you know it, they'll be here. And what's being done? I mean, the exposure continues of these guys who steal the elections. Sidney Powell put this out. The willful blindness, incompetence, and corruption of Texas officials at every level is simply stunning. Wake up, people. And she tagged Greg Abbott and FBI Director Cash. Lori Gallagher putting this out. Tarrant County officials panicked live. They are hacking the machines.
My name is Karen Wiseman. In Tarrant County, we have Hart Intercivic Equipment. In January of 2024, Tarrant County invited hackers to attempt to hack the election equipment during logic and accuracy testing. On January 11th, 2024, at approximately 8:45 a.m., I was standing behind the Director of Information Security and the Chief Information Officer for Tarrant County as they stood directly in front of the controller and scanner. Suddenly, the two men became distressed, and I overheard one of them say they are hacking the machines. The CIO said, "Shut it down," and someone immediately turned off the controller. They then focused their attention on two young men typing on their cell phones near the exit door and approached them. Later, I heard the director and CIO discussing how far the Wi-Fi reached, and they estimated about 100 feet. By this time, the two young men had moved outside and were still typing on their phones. Eventually, the CIO followed them to their car. In a separate incident on January 31st, 2026, while serving on the testing board for logic and accuracy testing, during the testing validation process, I personally witnessed a vote for a candidate being flipped to an undervote. Not only did the machine flip the vote in the tally, but it also altered the ballot image and removed the vote. This is not an isolated incident, as other instances of vote flipping have been documented by other members of the testing board. The county attributes the vote flips to dust in the machine or machines not being cleaned properly, even though the vote flip was replicated on another scanning machine and the exact same race on the exact same ballot out of a batch was altered in the same way. There's more detail in the affidavits included in my packet. Thank you.
So, we got that going on. Gunnar Engelman's telling us that the major win for election integrity, the DOJ is cracking down hard, warning election officials in multiple states that they could face serious criminal charges for letting non-citizens onto voter rolls or helping them cast ballots in the 2026 midterms. Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon isn't playing games. She's demanding states explain within 5 days exactly how they'll follow federal law and keep our elections for American citizens only. No more excuses. It's what real accountability looks like. Clean voter rolls, secure borders, fair fights. We want that charge to continue. While this is playing out, U.S. Department of Education said American history is worth learning, and they're showing us the Twin Towers. Interesting photo choice considering the subject, says Stoic Plumber. President Trump said the United States military has never been stronger, more powerful. No other nation can do what we do. It's not even close. This year, we set even more historic recruiting records months ahead of schedule. Morale has never been higher. Our military's unmatched power was on full display during our celebration of 250 years of American independence. And like our country, the War Department has never been hotter. We need to keep it that way, which is why when Congress returns, we must pass Reconciliation 3.0 with $350 billion for defense, plus the Save America Act. I am calling on House and Senate leadership to make this their number one priority and ensure that $350 billion in Recon 3.0 moves out of the Budget Committee as soon as Congress is back in session. The Save America Act, which everyone is asking for, paired with the full funding of our great Department of War, can be passed very quickly, ensuring that the United States of America stays free for generations to come. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, look what's happening in Minnesota. 436 investigations into the exact kind of massive daycare fraud exposed by Nick Shirley.
Of headlines this year.
FBI search warrant, make yourself known.
In April, 5 Investigates watched state and federal agents raid 9 daycares across the Twin Cities as part of a sweeping fraud investigation. Billing records we obtained show the daycares under investigation raked in millions in taxpayer money, and it somehow doubled in 2 years.
How does that explosion in billing that quickly not set off alarm bells in this building?
Well, I will say that I think that part of our move to electronic attendance record keeping is really about being able to sort of proactively identify and pull reports and work very closely with our Inspector General.
Are you able to share how many providers your Inspector General is investigating right now for possible fraud?
I'm sorry, I don't have that answer.
I followed up, and DCYF still has not provided a number. The state says phase 1 of this electronic system includes just 81 providers. That's less than 10% of the entire program.
We accept child care assistance in all of our programs.
In May, I sat down with the CFO of the largest provider in the state, New Horizon, who questioned whether this system goes far enough.
Will an electronic attendance system stop or weed out bad actors?
Based on the way the program is set today, no. It's not going to do anything.
Why is that?
It's not a real online system. It's an after-the-fact attendance system. The system isn't ready to go yet.
Penny Allen says the best option is real-time attendance uploaded automatically. Instead, the state still allows providers to manually send attendance records after the fact. But Wahi says they have other safeguards in place.
Do you think a year from now we would see the entire state utilizing this system?
You know, our hope is to really be able to move through that process and, again, continue to phase in different provider groups as we continue to move forward.
Oh, boy. Let's head over to the Small Business Administration.
So what we're talking about now is looking across the entire state of Minnesota, because it appears that this fraud ring is being perpetrated across all types of government assistance that is meant for families that are hungry, families that need housing, young children that need education, and it's being exploited. And look, the fraud is well known because the Minnesota legislature, an independent oversight committee, called it out years ago. Governor Walz looked the other way because he was benefiting his constituency, and now it's on the backs of hardworking taxpayers to pay it.
Sure is. You know what else is going on? New York Post said murderous Indian terror gangs used California as a cash register while trafficking guns and drugs. The United States Attorney Bill Saley, not anymore. 37 defendants charged, 50 search warrants executed. That's how we get it done. Now let's head on over to the crazies at Communist News Network as they're covering something very strange. Graham Plattner. It looks like they're finally caving and realizing, oh my goodness, this guy is really just as bad as they've been telling us.
And as you're talking to your sources, what are they telling you right now?
Yeah, Aaron, we actually have some significant news that was just released by the Democratic senatorial campaign.
For those that, need just a reminder, this was the guy with the Nazi tattoo, remember? Out of Maine. They kept saying, he's a Nazi. What are you doing?
Campaign committee. This is a joint statement between the chairwoman of that committee, Kirsten Gillibrand, and the Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer. Here's what they wrote, quote, "The allegations reported today are incredibly disturbing. Violence, abuse, and sexual assault are absolutely unacceptable. Graham Plattner needs to immediately withdraw as the Democratic nominee for Senate and allow Maine Democrats the opportunity to choose a new candidate who can defeat Susan Collins. The DSCC will not invest in the Maine Senate race if Plattner remains on the ballot." So a very, very serious threat there from the DSCC, saying that if Plattner does not get out of the way, they are not going to help fund this campaign. And obviously that is extremely significant given what you just pointed out. Democrats need to win this seat in order to try to take back the United States Senate in the midterm elections in just a couple of months. But
is that right? No kidding. Yeah. Democrats never do this. Or Republicans never do this. Excuse me. The Democrat machine just stole the election from Graham Plattner and Janet Mills. They cooed both candidates to block them from winning. This is from Reverend Jordan Wells. Yeah. That's how communist regimes select their candidates instead of letting voters elect them. Funny how that works. Republicans respect the voters' will. Democrats override it when it doesn't suit them. Joe Lang says Democrats haven't trusted American citizens to select their representatives for many decades. That's why the Democrats rig and steal elections, and it's also why the Democrats promoted an illegal immigrant invasion on the southern border. The entire purpose was to bring in a new generation of Democrat voters, and the Democrats were making American citizens subsidize the very people who are brought in to steal their votes. Now, in a moment, I'm going to play all the little reminders of how they backed Plattner and said he's a great guy. There's nothing wrong with him. Stick around. Have you been dealing with nagging pain, restless nights, constant stress, or just feeling drained? What if the solution was something as simple as wearing a watch? Introducing the new and improved WaveWatch 2.2, the world's first sound frequency therapy watch. This isn't just a timepiece, it's 166 powerful frequency sets, over 1,250 targeted frequencies designed to help your body restore balance naturally. Wear it on your wrist, pick a set for pain relief, deeper sleep, detox, energy boost, stress melt away, or even nerve support, and let gentle, safe sound waves do the work. No apps, no Bluetooth, just pure natural harmony. I use the watch for my back pain and also to regulate my sleep. My friend used it who had terrible knee pain affecting his bowling. Now he bowls pain-free. Another shared in less than a week improvements in liver, hip pain, nerve pain, and emotional balance. It's a blessing. Thousands are experiencing fast-acting wellness without chemicals or side effects. Right now, WaveWatch is giving And We Know fans a special deal. You get 15% off with code AWK. That's code AWK. That's a big savings on the WaveWatch 2.2. Don't wait. Supplies are limited and pre-orders are moving fast. Visit wavewatch.com/pages/AWK today. Use code AWK and take the first step toward feeling better naturally, because when we know better, we do better. Order now.
The Nazi tattoo was something that he owned up to. He said it was a mistake, but Graham has made it clear that there was no evidence of violence. That, to me, is a red line. He has unequivocally owned up to it, said that it was wrong, that he learned from it.
Why do you think he's your kind of man?
He has apologized and evaluate not who Graham Plattner was, but who Graham Plattner is today.
And I guess I have a view of redemption.
Sounds like a human being to me, a human being who made mistakes. Recognizes them and is very open about it.
Graham Plattner is the fighter we need.
One of the things that drives me crazy, our inability to stand by progressive Democrats, or Democrats for that matter, because of some dumb thing or inaccurate thing they may have said in their past.
Endorsed Graham Plattner.
I'm not overly impressed by a squad of media running around saying, "What do you think about the tattoo on Graham Plattner's chest?" Between you and me, there might be one or two more important issues.
I did ask if there are any credible allegations of assault, of domestic violence, of rape, of having any inappropriate relationship with a minor, and I made it clear that for me is a red line, and he said no, there is not.
What do you expect him to say? You expect him to say, yes, there is? Joe Lang, I'm no legal scholar at all, but here's a possible scenario that might be a nightmare for the Democrats. Graham Plattner still hasn't dropped out of the Senate race in Maine yet. The Democrats only have 1 week to replace him on the ballot, but what if Plattner refuses to withdraw from the race? What if the statute of limitations on these new rape allegations haven't expired yet? What if Plattner thinks the only way to avoid prosecution is to remain a public figure and a candidate for the Senate? Possibility. Are the Democrats in a desperate position to try and force Plattner out, and will he go along? I hope he stays in the race and becomes an even bigger millstone around the Democrats' neck. Now, while all this is playing out, I mean, I already can't stand the View as it is. Most of us probably can't. I mean, it's the witches' coven. And these witches, as they talk to Satan before they go on the air, many of them, Sunny being one of the biggest of them all, shocked me. I was actually shocked by her words, insisting she would still vote for Graham Plattner.
It is a disgusting time in politics where we decide what we're willing to morally accept based on the jersey you're wearing. And if you are one of those people that was willing to plug your nose, you're the problem.
Well, then I'm the problem because I was one of those people, and I said it. If I lived in Maine, I would have, plugged my nose and I would have voted for him anyway. I think that we are in a time of existential crisis in this country. I think Republicans fall in line. They don't fall in love. Democrats want to fall in love and not fall in line. The Republican Party, the bar is so very low. I cannot believe that they want to try to assume the moral high ground on the Republican Party. Right. I mean, you can miss me with all that, especially when you have Pete Hegseth, who was confirmed by the Senate in 2025 as the head, as a cabinet member, as the defense secretary, when he had drinking allegations. His sister-in-law submitted a sworn affidavit describing his drinking problem. And in order to get confirmed, he pledged that he wouldn't drink on the job. Number two, he had a tattoo controversy, not one, but two tattoo controversies. One was a Deus Vult tattoo, which is used by white nationalist groups. Two, he has a Jerusalem cross tattoo, which has been interpreted as an extremist symbol. And finally, in 2017, a woman claimed he had sexually assaulted her after a conference. She reported that assault immediately. She had a sexual assault examination. And in 2020, and he says it was a consensual encounter. And in 2020, he paid her $50,000 to settle the claim. Yet,
why not condemn them all?
Yet,
I condemn them all.
But the Republicans didn't do that.
Matt Gaetz,
the Republicans confirmed him, and
I'm a Republican right here condemning anyone who's been credibly accused of sexual abuse.
I'm talking about the Republican Party as a whole.
So would you be comfortable?
They are the Epstein file protection party.
You'd be comfortable still voting for Graham Plattner if you lived in Maine?
Can I just say one thing about this?
Take the moral high ground.
I really think that.
There you go. How this show continues to move forward, it baffles me. Wonder where they're getting their funding from. Very interesting. All right, some other folks out there that kind of baffle us. Articles of impeachment filed against foreign-born activist Judge Sparkle Suknanan for blocking President Trump's efforts to stop illegals from voting. Representative Abe Hamade, Arizona, dropping the hammer. No more rogue judges sabotaging our elections. Pass it now. Americans only. Abraham Hamenda is right. Time to end the black-robed power grabs, because that's what's been playing out. Salty Goat reminded us U.S. military deaths in Afghanistan, 20 years, 2,459. Chicago homicides, 20 years, 11,000 plus. Chicago has some of the strictest gun laws in the country. It's not the guns. It's Democrat-run cities that are more deadly than war zones. Yeah. So we're going to get into more on, I want to show you something really crazy when it comes to Mitch McConnell. And we're going to get into Seth Rich and some interesting things playing out on that also. But first, I just want to remind you, if you are looking for amazing And We Know t-shirts and hats and so much more, we've got it. We got the bedazzled crew neck and tee. And many folks that put this on, they're sending me emails and they're saying, hey, here's a picture of us wearing the gear. And somebody walked up and said, hey, I watched the show too. And then we got a new friend. It's so amazing to hear this. Here's more great pictures of Patriots wearing their gear. Well, Gizmo Memes put this together, so WWE. And there's John Thune. He's saying, hey, look, Mitch McConnell. And he brings him back. Buzz Patterson said, when the Save America Act is brought to the Senate floor, that's what we're going to see, right? Vroom. We need your vote to stop the Save America Act. Mitch, come back. So Representative Jack Kimball was out there saying on X. I spoke to my old friend Mitch McConnell this morning, the senior senator from Kentucky. He's still recovering in the hospital. We talked for just shy of 45 minutes. He's so sharp, just like he let me do all the talking. He's a great listener. After that, we prayed silently for a while and had a staring contest, just like always. He beat me. I told him we want to see him back at work as soon as possible. Even Scott Jennings, the guy from CNN, said, I spoke to my old friend Mitch McConnell this morning, the senior senator from Kentucky. He's still recovering in the hospital. We talked for just shy of 20 minutes about Iran, Ukraine, the unfolding situation in Maine, my visit to the TR Presidential Library, and even a little bit of Senate history. I told him we want to see him back at work as soon as possible. Interesting. Santa Surfing said it's scripted. Ken Colby said, wow, look at the script. It's like they're sending their scripts out to their people and they're saying, hey, we need Mitch McConnell. Makes you wonder about Scott Jennings, too. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Scott jumping in there saying, hey, I'm trying to bring him back to work, too, even though we know he's not capable. Why are they supporting him? It's awful strange because this guy, where is he? Where is he? All right, enough of that. So now we've got something very interesting. A guy named Peter Ticktin. He's actually a lawyer urging Trump to declare a national emergency. Why is he calling for a national emergency, said Ripcord. Ticktin has argued that foreign interference in the 2020 election justifies the use of emergency presidential powers and has said evidence supporting those claims will eventually become public. In an interview with CNN, Ticktin alleged that Venezuela, China, and Iran were involved and claimed evidence would emerge following the Trump administration's capture and indictment of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. Coming soon to a theater near you. So, the national emergency. When the president declares that, it immediately unlocks over 130 extraordinary statutory powers. These authorities allow the executive branch to bypass normal legislative processes, redirect federal funding, and restrict certain domestic activities to address that immediate crisis. Economic control. The president can use the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, the IEEPA, to impose sanctions, regulate international commerce, and freeze foreign or domestic bank accounts. Military and defense flexibility. The military can be deployed domestically, and the president can bypass normal bidding procedures for national defense contracts. Allows the redirection of existing defense funds for military construction projects. Communications regulations. The Communications Act of 1934 allows the president to regulate, restrict, or shut down wire and radio communication facilities during a crisis. Resource management. Through the Defense Production Act, the president can prioritize contracts, allocate national resources, and incentivize increased production for essential civilian and military needs. Once declared, the emergency continues for 1 year unless terminated by the president or by a joint resolution of Congress. While Congress has the authority to vote to end a national emergency, doing so often requires a veto-proof majority to overcome a presidential veto. Now, let's get into Seth Rich. Very interesting. Ty Clevenger on X said there's an update. An attorney for the government told me, he said, that I would soon be getting confirmation that several hundred pages of documents related to Seth Rich were found in a previously hidden room at FBI headquarters. You may recall that on July 30th, 2025, Fox News Digital reported that newly installed FBI Director Kash Patel and his leadership team had located an unmapped sealed area within the J. Edgar Hoover Building secret area, the SCIF. Last year's Fox's report described burn bags that contained thousands of pages of classified files intended for destruction, and those files were linked back to the 2016 Crossfire Hurricane investigation. Now, it appears that Seth Rich records were among the files designated for destruction. He says, I don't have anything in hand yet. I don't even know whether the FBI will agree to release a single page of what it found. Nonetheless, any confirmation that the files were in the secret SCIF raises a lot of questions. So I'll kind of go through this and remind you, Seth Rich was on Q-Board in September of 2020. Paul Florent says Seth Rich, the destruction of the Democrat Party is about to hit warp speed. If this stuff on Seth Rich comes out, folks, and we find out that the DNC had him taken out because he's the one that gave all the information to WikiLeaks, they're in big trouble. So I saw this from Mr. Truth Bomb. I put the link in the description box below for this lengthy video, but I want to play the first few minutes just for you to get an understanding for those that need to be queued up on Seth Rich.
As you likely know, in 2016, WikiLeaks published emails from Hillary Clinton's private email server, along with a huge series of email dumps from her campaign chairman John Podesta's account. Some of the correspondence was deemed classified, and thus she was in violation of the law. In July 2016, Trump famously suggested,
"Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded mightily by our press."
Julian Assange essentially confirmed that it was a 27-year-old DNC staffer named Seth Rich that leaked the DNC emails to WikiLeaks, which was blamed on Russian hackers. On the 10th of July 2016, Seth Rich was shot to death in what authorities described as a botched robbery attempt. Even though his phone, wallet, or Rolex were not stolen, Seth was found lying on the ground a block from his apartment with 2 bullet holes in his back. It was most likely an assassination by MS-13 gang members.
There's something clearly happening here. The Destroy Trump media, the Democrats, they have been pushing that Russian tin-foil hack conspiracy theory with zero evidence. For example, earlier today on Capitol Hill, former CIA Director John Brennan was asked about Russia collusion. Take a look.
I encountered and am aware of information and intelligence that revealed contacts and interactions between Russian officials and U.S. persons involved in the Trump campaign that I was concerned about because of known Russian efforts to suborn such individuals, and it raised questions in my mind, again, whether or not the Russians were able to gain the cooperation of those individuals. I don't know whether or not such collusion, that's your term, such collusion existed. I don't know. But I know that there was a sufficient basis of information and intelligence that required further investigation by the Bureau to determine whether or not U.S. persons were actively conspiring, colluding with Russian officials.
And you remember back in March, during an interview on Meet the Press, the former Obama Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper, he also said no evidence of Russia collusion. Watch this.
We did not include any evidence in our report, and I say our, that's NSA, FBI, and CIA with my office, the Director of National Intelligence, that had any reflection of collusion between members of the Trump campaign and the Russians. There was no evidence of that included in our report.
I understand that, but does it exist?
Not to my knowledge.
Now, in addition to Democrats admitting that they've seen no evidence whatsoever, back in January, while testifying under oath, James Clapper also said no evidence that Russia affected the actual vote tallies. His words, not mine.
First,
So, all this playing out, and the WikiLeaks getting the information, sharing and showing. Even Joe Rogan was going crazy saying, what in the world's going on? How did Seth Rich just disappear, right? He's killed. How do we know what happened? And we saw the comms that were playing out on the board to kind of tell us, and more. Mr. Truth Bomb did a great job. I encourage you to go below to watch the rest of that video. Anyway, continuing on. Remember, Ty Clevenger said, I don't have anything in hand yet about Seth Rich. But he said the FBI originally told him in 2017 that it had no records whatsoever about Seth Rich because it was not involved in the investigation of his death. We were told he died in a botched robbery, and only the local police were investigating it. No, we know that's not true. If it was a robbery, why did he still have his watch and everything else on him? Since that time, the FBI has gradually admitted the possession of several thousand pages of documents about Seth, his work laptop, an image of his personal laptop, another DVD. Nonetheless, on June 15, 2026, he had a file to yet another motion explaining how the FBI is withholding records in violation of court orders. If the FBI is still fighting transparency so hard on other fronts, and it is, then why would it acknowledge that records about Seth had been hidden in the SCIF? I don't know. Maybe Joe D. Genova's grand jury investigation in Miami is putting some heat on the players in D.C. I can tell you this much for sure. Nobody on Capitol Hill has been willing to touch the subject with a 10-foot pole. The murder of Seth Rich and the resulting cover-up is as radioactive as any topic I've ever seen. I hope that changes soon. And we should get updates. Whew. Wouldn't that be something if the truth about Seth Rich finally comes out? Well, on a good news front, listen what happens in, look what Toyota did.
It came over the wires that Toyota is moving out of Mexico into the United States and building one of the biggest truck and car plants ever built. It's amazing. That's what tariffs do, if properly used. And so we've never had a more exceptional economy or potential economy. There's never been anything like it.
Pretty amazing. Toyota moving in. Tariffs continue to work. While that's playing out, we released a video last Saturday of gold as a dollar discipline mechanism, moderating the near-term gold price upside, folks. And many things are happening on that front, and we continue to get amazing updates from Dr. Kirk Elliott. And you can reach out to him at amweknow.com/gold. He'll take care of you or somebody on his team. They'll pray with you also, answer all your questions, and I'm telling you, it's a great time to get involved with precious metals. Get your IRA switched over. It changed our life. It'll definitely change yours. So, wanted to show you a couple of other things on the front with the socialist communist. Carolyn Boryasenko. She exposes and decodes the radical revolutionary far left in America. And she's got an X site. I'm showing it to you on your screen. On July 2nd, she recorded a training held by the Party for Socialism and Liberation where they discussed abolishing the Constitution, overthrowing the government, and replacing it with socialist society. One participant is a leader in the NEA Teachers Union. So you'll see here on the bottom of the screen, as she's making hand motions and more, getting into uncovering what they're doing.
Step in the socialist reconstruction of society would be the creation of a new constitution. The current U.S. Constitution was drafted by the U.S. slave-owning class, and it enshrines the rights of capital. But the new constitution would enshrine and expand the rights of the working class.
They want to change the Constitution.
And millions of people will participate in constitutional conventions or popular constituent assemblies to draft and adopt this new constitution.
They want to abolish the Constitution because it upholds capitalism.
Unleashing a creative and collective process. The House of Representatives could be replaced with the National People's Assembly that would not only be made up of delegates elected from local election districts, but would also include delegates from the many mass organizations of millions of workers, students, and more. And the Senate could be replaced by the Assembly of Oppressed Nations.
It will require a massive movement for socialism and the adoption of socialist ideas across the country to win a new system, which is why the popularity in increasing is so exciting. But our rich history of struggle also shows that the capitalist system itself will adapt and adopt new methods to survive, and will never concede to fully not be exploitative or oppressive. A revolution is necessary. It is necessary to replace capitalism with a socialist society. And we must build the movements that are necessary in order to do that. And I think those of us who are socialists have an important role to play, like we did in history.
When we say a revolution, what does that actually mean?
Evil. Trying to infiltrate our country, destroy it from within, and get involved in so many ways to destroy it. Investigator report out of Amuse on X says these investigators report labels Plano Mosque a terror front. Former federal investigator David Kabatz went undercover at the East Plano Islamic Center and submitted a report to Texas classifying it as a front for terror groups functioning as a sleeper cell. His report alleged the mosque enforced Sharia among members and stocked violent jihadi literature distributed by terror groups. Now, let's go a step further, shall we, on all of this. Recently, we had a game between Argentina and Egypt in World Cup soccer. Okay? And Egypt was up 2-0 in the last 12 to 15 minutes. Argentina scored 3 goals with Messi's help. Now, Dr. Malouf, real Malouf, Malouf, said the Egyptian Football Association released a video titled The Secret to Victory. Listen to this. So I don't want to play the whole thing because sometimes I wonder if this audio gets out to millions of listeners, and the next thing you know, that reaches the demonic realm. Anyway, that's why I don't like to play the whole thing. So they openly declared that the key to victory is to begin each match by cursing Christians and Jews. Before every game, the team gathers to recite Quranic passages describing Christians and Jews as infidels under Allah's wrath. Coptic Christians make up 15% of Egypt's population, yet they are not allowed on the national team. And I saw a news report on that too. Now the Islamic team of Egypt has been eliminated by the infidel nation of Argentina. Allah was not on their side. Now, when they were losing, I want to show you on your screen. Look on your screen. You'll notice the Egypt's coach, he's a Hamas supporter. So don't be surprised that he behaved like a terrorist during the game. They had to give him a red card and kick him out. There's no way you charge towards Messi like this just because he outplayed you. So he's going on the field and he's chasing Messi down and screaming and yelling at him. And, he supports terrorism. What do you expect? I tell you what, these guys are in the United States of America playing this game. And they're quoting the Quran, and they're going against, very fabric of our nation. I'm going to show you an Egyptian Copt Christian explains how Egypt became Muslim.
We are one of the few Christians that are left from the ancient world to give America a warning. Islam took over Egypt by force, by sword, by blood. They killed the men, they raped the women, they raped the nuns, they enslaved the children, and they eradicated Christianity, and they burned the churches. From 0% Muslim to 90% Muslim. We were literally genocided. Islam is a sex cult, it's a bloodthirsty cult, and it's a death cult. It's all of the things. It's a religion of sex, perversion, blood, and violence. That's why you look at the whole prophet, Muslims believe Muhammad is the most perfect prophet. I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Muhammad has killed hundreds and thousands of people. Muhammad has declared a war across the whole entire world. Muhammad said, fight the enemies of Allah until they turn, until they're conquered, until they're humiliated, particularly those of the book. Who are those of the book? It's the Christian and the Jews.
Did you get that? Are you learning? I'm learning an awful lot. It shows you just how they behave no matter what, even in a game. Game that lasts 90 minutes plus, kicking a ball around. And they go ballistic and they are praying for the elimination of Christians. Also eliminating things would be Hollywood. If you guys didn't know, there's this movie that's coming out. A lot of folks are thinking they're going to go see it. Well, I want to warn you before you go see the movie The Odyssey. Hollywood is so terrified of its own audience, it's now locking comments and hiding replies on their trailers that they actually put the movie trailers on YouTube and other places because the woke remake is getting absolutely torched. Well, what do you mean? Christopher Nolan, you guys remember that guy? The one that shouldn't be a director, the one that was involved with children? Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey second trailer is getting demolished with an 87% dislike ratio and hundreds of thousands of downvotes. The official accounts immediately started locking comments and burying criticism. This isn't smart marketing, it's panic. They know audiences are rejecting the race-swapping rewrite of Western classics and don't want the receipts visible. Hollywood keeps forcing modern updates that trash source material, shove in diversity quotas, and then they act like shocked when people tune out. Hiding comments just proves they know the product is toxic. Even a prestige project with Nolan and a stacked cast can't escape the backlash, it's clear the era of woke blockbusters, this is from Mario Nafal, is hitting a wall. Audiences are voting with their wallets and dislikes. Studios treating fans like enemies to silence only makes the revolt louder. If you're looking at your screen, Helen in Greek mythology is on the left, and they brought in a different Helen in Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey on the right. Two completely different people. That's not the way it was written. It's happening. Spencer Pratt is visiting with Donald Trump at the White House. Pratt just posted a picture. I will never stop fighting for my community. Him and Trump are up to something. Big things are happening behind the scenes, and there he is with his son in the Oval Office. Pretty cool. Now, other cool things would be Grasshopper 17, and he's got all types of arrows going different directions and more on a interesting post. You remember that video that was posted where Renegade, Obama's being arrested right in the video, and you've got those guys walking through a portal with a red folder. We talked about it yesterday. Well, believe it's a coincidence that Trump posted regarding Dr. John G. Trump 1 day, 7 hours, 1 minute, 3 seconds after Elon's time travel video. So if you look at the comms, it says, good morning, do it Q. Known beforehand, you have a front row seat. Enjoy the show. You're witnessing the systematic destruction of the old guard. Forced exposure, standard deviation broken long ago. Pain, P-A-I-N. You're witnessing history. Remember Elon's nightstand? George Washington crossing the Delaware in a Durham boat? Yeah, Trump has infiltrated all dissenting local governments, always 5 steps ahead. Renegade equals desserts, and Renegade being arrested in that clip was phenomenal. And there's hope for our young ones. At Milo Joe posted this at Big Bear Alpine Zoo, and those kids, check this out. They saw an eagle, a bald eagle, and they started singing. For our children. That's what it's all about. Teaching them the history of our country. I sat down with my son yesterday. I said, hey, let's look at this YouTube channel. We went on YouTube and I showed him history of battles that George Washington had to go through, including York, and an amazing one where 400 men sacrificed their lives from Maryland so that the troops could escape and get back to New York. They had to go through a swamp, and it was devastating what would have happened to our country had they not survived that. Those 400 men gave their lives so we could be here today and have freedom. Let's not forget it.
For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest, neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you again. We're just so thankful to you for how you continue to guide and direct our lives in marvelous ways. You have great leaders out there that are imperfect, but you're using them to make great decisions to help us in the future, help wake up masses that have been under a spell for so long, and waking us up in many ways that we never thought possible, ways that are even difficult to understand at times. We hope that this Seth Rich thing is exposed soon. We hope that the people that have been responsible for so much evil across our country are finally taken out. We certainly hope that this Islam infiltration does not occur in our nation. We hope that you hear the cries of the people in our prayers and give us the direction that we need to reach them, send them back home, and hopefully give them Bibles on the way. We also ask that you continue to guide and direct our eyes and our minds and more in the direction you want us to go and what we want to say to our neighbors, our friends, our family, and more. We definitely need your help in that. We thank you for President Trump, his family, for their protection, and even more for your son, Jesus Christ, who died on the cross and rose again after 3 days. And it's his name we pray. Amen. Thank you, folks, for tuning in. I hope you have a great remainder of your week. So many things going on. It's just hard to keep up, but we're staying on top of it. Thank you so much for hitting that like and follow and your comments. For now, it's LT Semper Fi with Them We Know, signing out.
Because as you probably noticed, Europe's a very different place than it was 20 years ago. A lot different, much different. It's a much different, and they better be careful with immigration and energy. If they're not careful with those two things, you're not going to have a Europe anymore.
Yeah, Aaron, we actually have some significant news that was just released by the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. This is a joint statement between the chairwoman of that committee, Kirsten Gillibrand, and the Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer. Here's what they wrote, quote, "The allegations reported today are incredibly disturbing. Violence, abuse, and sexual assault are absolutely unacceptable. Graham Plattner needs to immediately withdraw as the Democratic nominee for Senate."
And the difference between this accuser and the previous one is simply this. She's a liberal. It's okay, I guess, for Democrats that their candidates assault conservatives. But he broke into someone's house and apparently, according to her, raped her. And because her politics are correct, they can now believe it. All of this whole thing is disgusting. But to say that they hadn't vetted him or that they didn't know about all this is totally false. They knew it and they signed up for it. And I don't know why